It caused him to become the most right wing, one of the most right wing senators in Congress. But it also basically stroked out half of the left, where no one can look at a guy who codes as a chud and ever take them seriously ever again. Everyone is constantly terrified. There's this like genuine trauma. It wasn't just a head trauma that John Fetterman got.
So Hasan Piker just delivered one of the sharpest takes on why the left keeps cannibalizing promising candidates. We're diving into his analysis of John Fetterman's betrayal, progressive trauma responses, and why Marine veteran Grant Plattner represents something genuinely different. This cuts deep.
It was a head trauma that he delivered to like damn near the entirety of the electoralist left, where they're all like, no, every single guy is John Fetterman. Everyone is John Fetterman. I say it's a trauma response because you're not thinking clearly when you make these assessments. John Fetterman is a unique once-in-a-lifetime ordeal. He got hit with the CIA stroke gun that makes you pro-Israel, more pro-Israel than he already was. He got hit with the CIA stroke gun that makes you the most right-wing senator in the country.
This is textbook trauma generalization. When one betrayal makes you see enemies everywhere. It's the same psychology that makes abuse survivors hypervigilant. Progressive movements do this constantly after being burned by politicians who seemed authentic but flipped once in office.
Plenty of people have already. And the reality of the matter is this is not a part of the calculus at all for Mainers. Like, I know you guys desperately want to know. You're like, oh, what the was the deal? And I certainly do too. And I've listened to some of his responses. To give it the fairest of all shakes, the idea, I mean, I find it totally ridiculous to join Blackwater in 2016 of all, of all times, right? Like, it's like long after we know that this is a war crimes factory.
Exactly right. Voters in Maine care about healthcare costs and jobs, not decade-old Reddit posts. By 2016, Blackwater's reputation was toxic nationally. But for broke veterans with families to feed, these contractors were still just paychecks. Economic desperation overrides ideological purity.
For the record, I'm not giving this is not a moral assessment. I'm just telling you what the calculation is. I know that everyone is going to look at what I just said and go, oh, yeah, dude, I'm going to go and join the baby murder factory. I'm not saying it's a good thing, okay? I need you to understand. He joins, he does embassy security, and after like a couple months doing embassy security, he's like, this shit sucks, and he leaves. Somewhere along the line, I think he either got one-shotted by shrooms and Michael Brooks and Majority Report, but somewhere along the line, his mentality changes, and he turns into a somewhat of a radical person with politics that closely resemble ours.
This distinction is crucial. He's doing political analysis, not moral cheerleading. Michael Brooks was brilliant at showing how genuine ideological transformation happens through material conditions and education, not just personality shifts. That's what makes authentic conversion recognizable versus opportunistic pivoting.
He's not doing that from a place where he's like, no, anti-colonial resistance forces have a right to militarily resist against other militaries. Like, it's totally ridiculous. He's looking at it like a chud. In 2014, when he's like covering that on Reddit, when he's like being critical, when he's like talking about what Hamas did on that IDF base, he's looking at it like a chud. Yeah, he was just like completely cold, calculated, and analytical in his approach to the effective military campaign effective military operation that Hamas conducted on a IDF base, right?
Those old posts actually prove his authenticity. Real military analysts assess tactics coldly regardless of politics. That's professional training. The fact that he could separate operational effectiveness from political solidarity shows he wasn't performing for any audience back then.
Of course there was going to be opposition research. Of course they were going to come after him. He's not like a professional he's not a professional politician. He doesn't have that same pedigree. He's not like normally when you come from a military background, you go through the officers program and then go to Yale and get a law degree from Yale or an MBA from Harvard, and then you go into Congress. You do a brief stint through the officers program or potentially with the State Department, right?
Spot on. Compare Plattner to Pete Buttigieg's carefully managed McKinsey to military to politics pipeline, or Tom Cotton's Harvard to Army to Senate track. Those are establishment grooming paths. Actual grunts who survive multiple deployments and then radicalize leftward, That almost never happens institutionally.
You don't actually go through the process of grunt, multiple tours served, actually in the line, actually in front of the line of fire, actually holding a machine gun, and maybe even doing some heinous things. That's not the normal route. JD Vance did, yeah. No, JD was combat camera. Exactly. He was press, right? He was Marine Corps press. So that's a poor person. That is I mean, his background is not necessarily poor, from what I understand. I think he's like upper middle class, but you don't do this route. This route is actually very unique. He was a grunt. He was a machine gunner for the Marine Corps. He's a crayon eater. And somewhere along the line, he had a real change of attitude.
Massive difference. J.D. Vance did public affairs, essentially military journalism. Combat camera versus machine gunner is like comparing a war correspondent to an infantry soldier. Only actual combat veterans have the moral authority to critique the wars they personally fought.
Right? And that the CIA would have to infiltrate it. And we're thinking like decades ahead. And this guy is the perfect guy to do that with. But then in an effort to like boost his profile as like a real one, they also tarnished his reputation as aggressively as possible. And he withstood one of the most cynical oppo dumps of all time for a primary. And let's not pretend that a massive amount of the community ate this shit up. Oh,
the conspiracy theory collapses under its own logic. If he's a CIA plant, why would they simultaneously destroy his reputation with damaging oppo research? His survival of that primary assault actually proves he connects with real Maine voters, not just online leftist discourse.
This is real. This is a real thing. Jewish Insider was the one that leaked that story. Jewish Insider was the one that put that story out there. And then every ultra ate that shit up, where they were like, oh, dude, sins of the father. This guy is totally a pro-Israel stooge. He's a secret agent. It was crazy. And what did I tell you at the time? I was like, look at where this information is coming from. Look who leaked this story. Look who put this story out there. It was the motherfucking Jewish Insider that wrote it, knowing full well that this would go to the right circles. It would circulate in all the right communities, and it did. A lot of people ate that shit up.
Classic divide and conquer tactics. Pro-Israel outlets know exactly which leaks will trigger progressive infighting. They weaponize the left's own skepticism against genuine candidates, and it works because people want to feel smarter than everyone else who fell for it.
And I'll admit, as far as getting ahead of the controversy with the Totenkopf tattoo, the Podjohns actually helped out big time, where he, instead of waiting for the news to break, he controlled the media cycle on the Totenkopf tattoo. He went on Podjohns and was like, this is the thing that is on my chest. I didn't know it was a Totenkopf Nazi tattoo. I'm covering it immediately. That was actually somewhat brilliant. It's ironic because the Podjohns were also responsible at the time for Elizabeth Warren doing that blood quantum test on whether or not she was actually, indigenous or not, which, was, in my opinion, not their best moment. But this was actually, this was unironically a very solid approach that he had.
Perfect contrast. Warren's DNA test was reactive damage control that amplified the controversy. Plattner controlling his own narrative by proactively addressing the tattoo on a friendly platform showed actual political intelligence. The Podjohns redeemed themselves after that Warren disaster.
I mean, if you're getting a tattoo on shore leaving Croatia, the likelihood that that is going to be a Nazi tattoo is unbelievably high. Most places in the United States of America, most tattoo shops in the United States of America would not have that tattoo. As a matter of fact, they would never tattoo that. As a matter of fact, they would literally offer free coverage of tattoos like that because it's a Nazi tattoo. Tattoo parlors know exactly what the common Nazi tattoos are. Croatia is the one place where you have an unbelievably high likelihood that the tattoo that you're getting is probably a Nazi tattoo.
Croatia's complicated history with the Ustasha fascist regime means Nazi symbolism isn't as universally recognized there. American tattoo artists are trained to spot white supremacist imagery because of our domestic neo-Nazi problem. Different countries, different cultural knowledge bases about hate symbols.
He said he never worked for Blackwater? No, he said Blackwater had been disbanded by that point and it was operating under a different name, which is true technically. He's just trying to get off on a technicality. But it's bullshit regardless. Yes, it's a Blackwater. It's what Blackwater became. It's one of the many different security contractors that most veterans go to work for. I think it was, Constellus at that point. Regardless, it doesn't matter. It's still totally worthy of suspicion and scrutiny. Blackwater was disbanded and then recreated under different names over and over again. Academy was another name for it as well. And the reason for why was because they kept doing war crimes. Okay, that's it. Because that's what security contractors do. They do war crimes.
This shell game is deliberate. Blackwater becomes Z, becomes Academy, becomes Constellus to dodge accountability for each war crime. It confuses veterans looking for work and gives politicians plausible deniability. The revolving door of military contractor names serves corporate interests perfectly.
They're all bourgeois social fascists, two sides of the same coin. So it's not, from your perspective, it doesn't change anything, right? So this is why I never understand why like anti-electoralist leftists or ultras will lose their minds as though they're making a sincere calculation here that like Graham Plattner is going to be worse than Susan Collins or Janet Mills. He's not. If you're making an electoralist calculation, then yeah, of course Graham Plattner is far better. I don't think it's inherently anti-electoralist to want him to properly address his history, honestly, in my opinion. I mean, no disagreements there, but I'm pretty sure he has already done so over and over again. There's just never going to be an answer that a lot of people are comfortable with.
Exactly. If you genuinely believe electoralism is pointless, then why obsess over one candidate's background? The selective outrage reveals these aren't principled anti-electoralists. They're just using ideological purity as cover for personal preferences and social media clout chasing.
Okay? You can't explain it. It's impossible to explain. He literally says, I didn't know that it was a Nazi tattoo when I got it. It's not going to be a satisfying answer because the social crime committed in that situation is the maximum social crime. There is literally nothing more egregious that you could do than get a Nazi tattoo. There is no satisfactory answer for that when you have done the worst social crime possible. It's not a real crime. That's why I'm saying it's a social crime, right? I'm willing to believe that he has had a real change of heart.
Nazi imagery functions as the ultimate social taboo precisely because it represents absolute evil. That's why context becomes irrelevant. The symbol itself carries such weight that explanations feel insufficient. It's about social contamination theory, not rational assessment of intent.
Him looking like a chud and having that background as a machine gunner for the Marine Corps gives him unbelievable credibility to speak out against war in a way that no one else can, in a way that even the likes of John Kerry never could, not that he would, right? In a way that Pete Buttigieg never could, not that he would. He got his tattoo covered. He's only shown growth, no regression in his policies, and he carefully explains the reasoning behind his choice and policies, unlike all those other people who were flip-floppers. Yeah. If anything, he most likely doesn't say what his actual beliefs are because he's worried that he's going to come across as a radical.
This is the key point. Authentic military experience creates unassailable anti-war credibility. When Pete Buttigieg criticizes military action, people rightfully ask what he actually knows. When a machine gunner who did 4 combat tours says war is wrong, that carries moral weight.
Hasan Piker loves him, so I just also shy away from, communicating on this issue with the utmost clarity, even though I can't help myself, especially when we end up arguing over this shit over and over again. One of the things that they're using now, the RNC is using now, is me saying, "What the more do you want?" He was defending Hamas in 2014. That's literally going to appear on Fox News at some point. So just understand that, unfortunately, even though I have a policy of always saying the truth, no matter what it is, and no matter how I feel, no matter how other people might get mad about it or how other people might use it, there are people who are going to consistently bastardize and consistently chop up things that I'm saying to attack candidates, okay?
This chilling effect is real. Honest political commentary gets weaponized against both commentators and candidates. The RNC will absolutely use clips out of context, but that can't stop authentic discourse. The alternative is sanitized political theater that helps nobody.
Blackwater becomes literally just job when you're trying to hold on to a positive income with 30 years of propaganda on top. Yeah, what's inconsistent in his background is the fact that he was like pro-Palestine when he was like 14, and then he joined the American military, the Marine Corps, became a machine gunner, did 4 tours, and then joined back to go on Blackwater. At times he has been, at times he has demonstrated a negative opinion about American warfare, and then has also been a willing participant of it. I personally And I've said this many times over. I can't repeat this enough. I don't give a shit. A lot of people get super, super mad when I say this, but it's the reality that we live in.
Hannah Arendt's Banality of Evil perfectly captures this. Ordinary people participating in horrible systems through mundane daily choices. 30 years of propaganda plus economic necessity makes military contracting feel like just another job, even when intellectually you know better.
The reality that we live in has normalized this death and destruction campaign. The average American 100% does not have the same hangups that you do about joining the fucking military. They don't. They literally do not see it. If at any point they do understand it, then that's fantastic. And many veterans, left flank vets in general, have comprehended their actions and work against American imperialism now. You can poo-poo that away all day, every day. Oh, we little infantry vet with an upper R middle-class family that offered to pay for his college, who refused the GI Bill to go to Georgetown and got gifted an oyster business. Like, again, and again. Yes, this background is unbelievably normal.
This reality check is essential. Most Americans see military service as honorable, even when leftists correctly identify it as imperial violence. Plattner's political evolution from that mainstream starting point is genuinely remarkable, not typical opportunistic repositioning we usually see.
Oh my God, it's the United States of America. I am not a fan of guns. Although I do like shooting guns, I believe in gun control. Significant regulations around the ownership of guns. But if you're getting mad at a chud who served 4 tours and has a gun safe in Maine, who do you think is closer to the average Mainer? You or a guy who is unbelievably terrified at the prospect of someone having a gun safe? It's difficult for you to comprehend that you might be the one who's out of touch. You understand that, right?
Brutal but necessary reality check. Maine voters want authentic representatives who understand their lives. Cultural purity tests from urban leftists who've never lived in rural America just guarantee Republican victories. Effective progressive politics requires meeting people where they are.
I care about who you are now, okay? I care about your experiences as long as they have actually guided you in the right direction. If I didn't believe that people had the capacity to change, I wouldn't be doing this. A lot of people are fortunate enough to have not made this unbelievably bad decision. And that's it. So all you're doing in that situation is no different than when people chirp about like being born with a copy of Das Kapital in one hand and being a principled Marxist-Leninist since birth. You know what I mean? In comparison to these radlibs who don't fully understand, who don't grasp the nuances of the theoretical framework of dialectical materialism and how it's actually supposed to be the guiding North Star, the guiding principle of all revolutionaries.
This philosophy of political redemption is what separates effective organizing from purity politics. If people can't change, then political education is pointless. The alternative to believing in transformation is writing off huge portions of the working class as permanently lost.
Now imagine if I was like, tell me what kind of radlib tendencies you had beforehand. What did you do beforehand? I bet you were a reactionary. I bet you were, were you a Nazi? I bet you're faking changing now. Every single time someone came into this community and was like, I experienced a lot of growth as a consequence of being a part of this community. Imagine if I just held you to who you were, the shameful experiences that you went through in the past, that would be ridiculous and unbelievably unproductive. Many of you have the privilege of being anonymous on the internet when you talk like this. I personally believe in rehabilitation, and that means rehabilitation for social crimes as well as even literal crimes, even war crimes, as a matter of fact, because I find it to be unbelievably unproductive to just like consistently chirp about where people used to be and not who they are now.
The anonymity point cuts deep. Online leftists can maintain perfect ideological positions without real-world consequences while demanding public figures be flawless from birth. It's the ultimate privilege to judge from the shadows while others face actual political combat.
Yeah, sorry, it's going to be really tough for me to poo-poo this guy, okay? I mean, come on. Come on, dude. It's tough. It's tough, man. Perhaps that's the reason why so many of you make the wrong comparisons when you say, oh, he could be like another John Fetterman, or you're like, oh, what if he was an IDF veteran, or whatever the You don't listen to what he's saying right now. You're like, oh, well, this is a lesser evil vote. How is it any different than Kamala Harris? It's not a lesser evil vote. What the are you talking about? This is not a lesser evil vote at all.
Look at his actual positions, calling Israel's actions genocide, supporting Palestinian resistance, advocating Medicare for all with no corporate compromise. This isn't lesser evil voting. It's genuine progressive politics that happens to come from someone with an unconventional background.
A lot of people have been so conditioned into hearing perfectly crafted, focus group tested messaging that when they hear someone just go, yeah, it's a genocide. Yeah, I was in Blackwater, whatever, all this shit. When they hear that, it's just like well, the Blackwater stuff, they don't even give a about. The people I'm talking about are just like, yeah, I said some really up things on Reddit. It's not who I am now. They go, whoa, what the Those people, for the most part, don't care that he was a machine gunner or even joined Blackwater. I'm talking about rad libs in general. They care about like the way he talks and the way he presents himself, the way he carries himself, the way he the way he communicates on issues.
Voters are starving for authenticity after decades of focus grouped political speak. When someone says, yeah, I made mistakes and learned from them, instead of perfectly crafted non-apologies, it breaks people's brains because it's so rare in modern politics.